are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here. On this Friday, May 3rd, we have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link, that is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So, with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to talk about more on the 49ers stuff regarding their wide receivers, more comments made by General Manager John Lynch on his commitment to both of these guys, because throughout this whole offseason, especially with Brandon Aiyuk, we've just been hearing nothing but trade rumors because of his contract and wanting a new contract. And then when the draft came around, we started hearing some rumors about Deebo Samuel maybe being traded. So I'll get into all that in a second. Then in the second part of the show, we'll take a look at some updated Super Bowl odds for each team. I looked at DraftKings, so we'll go based off of those odds, and I'll talk about them, give my thoughts on each team's Super Bowl odds. I mean, well, not going to go through every single team, but we'll go through the teams that have the best odds, and I'll give you my thoughts on that. Then in the third part of the show, we'll take a look at every quarterback that was taken in the first round in the 2024 NFL Draft, and I'll talk about their situations and, you know, if they might have to sit or if they're going to start right away. We'll get into all that as well. So really just kind of an overview on all the quarterbacks that were taken in the first round and, you know, the situations that they were drafted into. And then in the final part of the show, we'll talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. They declined Najee Harris's fifth-year option. So this is his final year, and we'll see, you know, what happens after 2024 if they bring him back. But they did not pick up his fifth-year option, so I will talk about that as well. So, with that being said, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the 49ers, which, again, another team that I have talked about a lot because with their receivers, they've been in the news a lot. So, let's get into that. And, yeah, so more comments from John Lynch. So, he was on the Pat McAfee show, and he basically was talking about his roster and, you know, the stuff revolving around his two receivers. And this is what he said. He said, "I love our roster. I'm doing everything in my power to keep our roster together." And we'll see if he says anything else in the article that I have here. So that was actually his only quote that he said. Okay, so that doesn't... I thought there was another quote, but I guess not. But that's basically what he said. Well, yeah, and here's... Well, yeah, this is more from the quote. "I love our roster, and I love the way it's comprised. I'm doing everything in my power to keep our roster together, and that's my goal. Deebo and Aiyuk are guys that we drafted, and we couldn't be more proud of these guys." So that's more from what he said on the Pat McAfee show. And, I mean, I do believe him. The 49ers are a team that are in a great position to contend for a Super Bowl. They've come up short a lot these last few seasons, but it's tough now because you got guys that are going to desire new contracts, and right now you still have Brock Purdy, who's not making that much money, but eventually he's going to need a new contract, and I know I've touched upon that this offseason. But so the window's kind of, you know, right now to get it done while Brock Purdy is still under that rookie contract. Because now when he needs a new contract, it's going to be harder to, keep some of the other guys. But also, is Brock Purdy the long-term answer at quarterback? And they definitely view that. But what if Brock Purdy goes out there in 2024 and doesn't play well? Then what? So they got some decisions that are going to be coming their way that they're going to have to make in the near future. And yeah, you want to keep everybody. But that's not how it always works. You're going to have to move off of some guys. I mean, look at the Bengals. And I've talked about the T. Higgins situation. We talked about that yesterday. They're not going to be able to keep him and Jamar Chase. If they're going to have to pay both receivers, they're not going to be able to do. They can't do it. I mean, they can, but then you got to address other areas. On the defensive side of the ball, and other positions as well on the offensive line. You can't be paying, your quarterback and your two receivers can't account for most of your cap. You got to be able to spread that around so you can make sure that other areas are addressed. And that's the same thing with the 49ers. So they could move off of one of these guys at some point. The Bengals, I think, and we talked about it in our production meeting yesterday, that T. Higgins at some point will get traded. Maybe it's not this year, but it could be next year. So we'll have to see. I mean, he is currently under the franchise tag, so but we'll see. At some point, he's long term, he's not going to be a Bengal. But now with these two guys, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk, are they going to be 49ers long term? It was interesting hearing Deebo Samuel's name being floated around in trade rumors. Because all offseason, all we heard was Brandon Aiyuk, but there was really no talk about Deebo, and then all of a sudden we get to the draft and doing some reading and seeing that the 49ers could be more inclined to trade Deebo Samuel instead of Aiyuk. And they did draft a receiver, Ricky Pearsall, and he's kind of got that similar skill set as Deebo Samuel, where you can line him up in the backfield. You can do all these different things with him, like they do with Deebo. So, and with Aiyuk, they don't really do that. So, Pearsall could be that Deebo replacement. Then maybe that's the receiver that ends up going. Now, I mean, you're hoping that they keep everybody for 2024. I mean, if John Lynch is doing everything he can to make sure that they're all good and they could keep their roster together, you're hoping that, as a Niners fan, that they're all together for this year. Because after this year, who knows? They might be moving off of some guys. They've had to let go of some guys too. Like, they let go of Eric Armstead on the defensive line, which hurts. So, this is the year to get it done. Because, again, you could see more guys looking to get paid, including their quarterback. So, you want to get it done. Now, can they do it? Yeah. I think they could. Of course, they could. I believe they can win a Super Bowl. The problem is they've gotten there a couple times and they've lost to the same team. And they had a lead in both games. They had a 10-point lead the first time they played the Chiefs, and then, they had a lead against the Chiefs again, and it evaporated because of, a muffed punt on special teams. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else the 49ers could have did. I mean, they could have cashed in on, some Patrick Mahomes or the Chiefs turnovers. Mahomes threw a pick and Pacheco fumbled, but the Niners didn't cash in. And I thought they did play a solid game, but they didn't do enough. And again, another thing that I've talked about all offseason, and Mahomes said it again recently, is that they are really guaranteeing this three-peat. They really want this to happen. And they got a great chance to. And I think the offense is going to be better. They were able to bring back Chris Jones. They, extended Andy Reid and the guys in the front office, and Travis Kelce got a pay raise. They're ready to go. But that's if you get to the Super Bowl. With the NFC, the Lions are not going away. The Packers got better. The Eagles got better. Dallas kind of stayed the same, and the 49ers own Dallas, so not really going to put them in. I think the Eagles are better than Dallas right now, because the Eagles got better. Dallas just stayed the same. Now Dallas could still again. Dallas played very well against the Eagles last year. They could have won both games, but the Eagles, they improved on defense, so we'll see how that matches up when these two teams meet in the fall or whenever they play. They play later in the season. We get more towards the winter, but yeah, you'll see at least one matchup early on in the season. I would imagine, but that's really I mean the teams in their own division, the 49ers. I think they're better. I mean the Rams are going to be good, even without Aaron Donald. They're going to be a good team. You got the Seahawks, who are going to be a good team, but they still got some questions at quarterback, and we'll see how that plays out. And the 49ers are better than every team in the South, in the NFC South. So really, I look at, and back to the NFC North. I said the Lions and the Packers. I love what the Bears have done. The Vikings have a solid roster, but you got two rookie quarterbacks and Sam Darnold. If Sam Darnold starts with the Vikings, so the Bears got to show us first that they belong before we could start talking about, oh man, they're one of the better teams in the NFC. So right now the three teams are the Packers, the Lions, and the Eagles. Those are the three teams. And the Eagles, they've beaten the 49ers before. Now that was in the NFC Championship game, and Brock Purdy got hurt. And we'll see if the Eagles can recapture that 2022 magic and bring it into 2024. Because now you got Saquon Barkley, and like I said, you address the secondary, you address the defense as a whole this offseason, both in the draft and in free agency. So they should be better. They should be back to more of the 2022 Eagles and not the 2023 Eagles where they just collapsed towards the end of the year. New coordinators. So yeah, they're going to be a problem. The Lions are going to be a problem. The Lions were up 17 against the Niners in the NFC Championship game. The Packers were up against the Niners in the divisional round. Those two teams, the Niners should have got knocked off. They shouldn't even have been in the Super Bowl. But they came back and they got to it, but they couldn't get the job done against the Chiefs. So I look at those three teams as the biggest competitors to the Niners right now. Is the Packers, the Lions, and the Eagles. So we'll have to wait and see. But you want to make, I mean, John Lynch, again, he's going to do everything he can to make sure that this roster stays together. But he's, again, in the long term, you might not be able to keep everyone. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. And guys are getting older. So you really, this is the year to do it. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I mean, those two games against the Packers and the Lions, they almost lost those games. Those games were at home. They were down 17 to the Lions at home. And I think the Lions are going to want to get back to that point again. And you got the Packers, who finished the year strong, won a playoff game, had a chance to beat the Niners, but it didn't happen. And then you have the Eagles, who, got stomped by the Niners in the regular season. I think they're gonna have a little bit of motivation too. So we'll have to wait and see. But you hear the general manager talking for the Niners. He wants to make sure that he keeps the roster together, and we'll see if he stays true to his word, and whether or not they move off of one of their receivers and opt to go with some of the younger guys that they've drafted. But again, we'll keep an eye on it. So let me know what you guys think about what John Lynch had to say. Who's more likely to be moved if the Niners do move off of a receiver? Is it Debo? Is it Aiyuk? Let me know in the comments, because again, we're going to be talking about this a lot even throughout the season. Maybe something happens before we even get to the season and someone ends up getting traded. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we'll talk about the Niners during this segment, and that is we will talk about the updated Super Bowl odds after the draft. I'll go through each team, or most of the teams, what their odds are going into next season. And that's what we'll do when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about the updated Super Bowl odds for teams, who has the best odds going into 2024. And I said we'll look at DraftKings. I know there's many different sports books we could look at, but DraftKings is the one that at least I use. So I figured I'll just look at their odds, and I'll give you my opinion on them. Also, one quick thing. So last night, the Knicks beat the 76ers. Great game. Very exciting. Very stressful for anyone that's a Knicks fan. Great series. A lot of exciting moments. But at the game last night was Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown. And Saquon Barkley, of course, left the Giants to join the Eagles. And he tweeted out last night about how people are still bothering him over him leaving to go to the Eagles because they showed him at the game. And again, I'm a Giant fan. Saquon Barkley is no longer a Giant. And maybe it's because I didn't have as much, I guess, appreciation for him as many other Giant fans had. So that's why Giant fans are really upset that he left and went to a rival. Because to be honest, the way they've been the last several years, it's just, they needed to change. I didn't really have any attachment to a lot of the players. And even with him, I mean, he was on the team since 2018. So yeah, he's been on the team for a while. But with Barkley, you know what the Giants did? They did a lot of losing. And again, he's not, it's not all his fault. But with Saquon Barkley, the Giants didn't win a lot of games. So we need to turn the page. All right, let the guy live his life. He's in Philly. He's going to a basketball game. Let the man live. Let the man live his life. It's over. Let's focus on the team that they have right now. Start getting Devin Singletary jerseys. He actually, they wasted no time. They gave Devin Singletary 26. No hesitation. So, anyways, but yeah, that just annoys me. Yeah, and like you said in the tweet, it's been 2 months, which is actually crazy that it's been 2 months since he signed with the Eagles. It doesn't even feel like that, but that's where we are. Okay, so let's get back on topic here. So, here are the Super Bowl odds. Teams with the best chance. I mean, I don't want to run through every single team, but who has the best odds? Can you take a guess? It's the Kansas City Chiefs, of course. So on DraftKings, they are plus 550. Then the team we just talked about, the San Francisco 49ers, they are plus 600. The Ravens are plus 900. The Lions are plus 1,200. Same odds as the Bills, which I think is interesting. Bengals are plus 1,300. The Texans are plus 1,600. Both the Eagles and the Cowboys are plus 1,700. The Packers are plus 1,900. Jets are plus 2,000. Dolphins are plus 2,200, same as the Falcons. The Chargers are plus 3,000, same as the Bears. Rams are plus 3,500. Browns are plus 4,000. Jaguars are plus 4,500. Steelers are plus 5,000, and so on and so forth. And the team with the Panthers are plus 25,000. And yeah, I don't think the Panthers are going to be making the Super Bowl. I mean, but you're hoping for improvement with them because they address the offensive line. They've given Bryce Young weapons. So you're hoping that he takes a big leap in 2024. I hope he does. I hope he does. And you hope that you hope for for Panthers fans too, because yeah, last year was pretty brutal. But yeah, so I want to go through some of them. I feel like I think the Bengals should have higher odds than the Bills. I think because the Bills they got a little bit weaker. They did draft a receiver. They took Keon Coleman to be the replacement of Stephon Diggs. They signed Curtis Samuel. Khalil Shakir, we saw how he performed in the playoffs. James Cook started playing, like, he started going off towards the end of the year, particularly against the Cowboys. You know, you have the two tight ends, and of course you have Josh Allen. But I just feel like with the healthy Bengals squad, and I think maybe that's it. Maybe it's because of Joe Burrow coming back from the injury that the Bills have better odds right now. But I think if the Bengals are healthy, I think the Bengals got to have better odds than the Bills do. And again, these odds are going to change throughout the season. This is what it is right now. I mean, they gave the Eagles and the Cowboys the same amount of odds. Or the same odds. They're both plus 1,700. I mean, what did the Cowboys didn't do anything this offseason. Well, other than their draft. They did draft a left tackle. But you signed two running backs. One of them was Zeke. You signed the linebacker. I mean, you got guys coming back from injuries. You got Trayvon Diggs coming back. There's also the possibility that they do bring back Stephon Gilmore. I did see an article on that. I mean, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just like overvaluing the Eagles and what they did. Because I don't think the Cowboys are bad. Like the way I've talked about them, it like many other people have, and it's like, oh, they didn't do anything. You would think like, oh, the Cowboys are awful. They're not awful. They're not bad at all. They're a solid team. They're going to be a solid team, you would imagine, in 2024. But yeah, the draft they added players. But with free agency, they really didn't. They lost guys. They lost their center to Washington. They had to let go of some guys. They kind of stayed the same. Whereas I feel like the Eagles got better. I don't know. I don't necessarily think the Cowboys got better, even with their draft. I feel like they're kind of around the same. But that's just me. I think the Eagles should have slightly better odds than the Cowboys, but that's just my opinion. Packers at 1,900. I mean, I feel like their odds should be better too. You know, they got to the divisional round last year. They almost beat the 49ers. You figure Jordan Love, a full season of him playing like he did towards the end of the year, you would think that maybe they should have better odds instead of plus 1,900. But, I mean, look, the Chiefs, the Niners, the Ravens, the Lions, that top four, I'm okay with. I don't really have any complaints there. I mean, the Chiefs, look, right now they run the AFC. And the Bengals are the team that have knocked them off. Joe Burrow is, still playing, and he's one of the guys that knocked Mahomes off in the playoffs. The other one is retired, and that is Tom Brady. So if you can get a healthy Joe Burrow back, that's the team that has the best chance to knock off the Chiefs. And, some of the other teams here, the Jets at plus 2,000. Yeah, it's a gamble because, well, and that's what, if you take those odds, that's what it is. You're banking on a lot of guys staying healthy, including their quarterback. And the Jets on paper, this should be a playoff team. They drafted a receiver. They added Mike Williams. They improved the offensive line. They drafted one of the best tackles in the draft. Like I said, you addressed the offensive line. You signed Tyron Smith. You traded for Morgan Moses. You signed John Simpson. You're hoping Vera Tucker comes back and is healthy. And you hope that Breece Hall can carry over what he did last year, which he's going to. He showed you he's one of the better running backs in the NFL. And you're hoping that, with improvements at the wide receiver position, that can help Garrett Wilson. And if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, that'll help Garrett Wilson as well. The defense is going to be good. But we need to see this offense healthy and ready to roll. And I think they will be. Like I said, I'm going to take that stance of the Jets are going to be solid. Things are going to go right for them, and they'll be a playoff team. Now, if they get to the playoffs with that defense gave quarterbacks problems last year. Whether it was Mahomes, whether it was Josh Allen, whether it was Jalen Hurts, whether it was Justin Herbert. Now, Herbert and Mahomes both won. But first of all, Mahomes should have had 3 picks. One of them got called back. But this defense against some of the better quarterbacks in some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, they played really well. So if they get in and you got a healthy Aaron Rodgers, this team is going to give these other teams problems. So I'm hoping the Jets do well because I want to see Rodgers do well, but yeah, and then again, you got some of the other teams. You got, the Dolphins and the Falcons plus 2,200. I mean, I don't see these teams making Super Bowl runs. They both have solid offenses, but I just feel like with the Dolphins, quarterback position is going to hold them back. With the Falcons, I mean, a healthy Kirk Cousins, they're going to put up points. They should have a solid year. But I don't know. You look at the other teams in the NFC, they're just better. And that goes for every team in the NFC South. You know, whether it's the Buccaneers that come out of it, the Saints, you know, come out of it. It's just I look at the other teams as being better. I mean, listen, when I look at the top 6, yeah, you could look at the Chiefs and say, yeah, I'll take the Chiefs. They've won the last 2 years. They're going for the three-peat. I'll just take them. But what would be take out the Chiefs for a second. What team here, at least from the Chiefs to, let's say to the Texans, or to actually we'll go from the Chiefs to the Packers. So that's 10 teams right there. Take out the Chiefs. What team would I take to win the Super Bowl next year? If I was going to bet, take out the Chiefs. Because the Chiefs, that's the easy pick. And I'll tell you, it's very tough. I would love to take the Bengals because I feel like if Joe Burrow's healthy, this could be the Bengals' year. I know the Texans made a lot of moves. I love what they've done. And the Texans beat the Bengals last year. But maybe this is the year that the Bengals, they break through. So maybe I would take them with the plus 1,300. But again, that's, you know, taking out the Chiefs. Because again, the Chiefs, it's an easy pick. You just go, I'll take them. That's what, honestly, that's what I might do. But you got to see Joe Burrow come back. So, but yeah, those are the odds. Again, the Chiefs right now have the best odds to win the Super Bowl. You got the 49ers with the second best, the Ravens, Lions, Bills, Bengals, Texans, and you go down the list. But that would be my pick. If it's not the Chiefs, I'd take the Bengals with plus 1,300. And I think they should have slightly better odds than the Bills. That's just my opinion because they also beat the Bills last year. I know it's a new year, but they also beat him in the playoffs. Joe Burrow's kind of owned Josh Allen these last couple of matchups. So, but that's just my opinion. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again. Well, I was about to say what's going on here with the graphic, but yeah, we're gonna go to break. But first, want to remind you guys once again. Tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCPodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCPodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So when we come back from our second break of the show, we will talk about the 2024 first-round quarterbacks. We'll talk about their situations, how I feel about them, my expectations, and yeah, so that's what we will discuss when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to talk about all the quarterbacks that were taken in the first round of the NFL draft, I'll talk about each of their situations and kind of my expectations for them, at least in year one. So we'll go in order. Talked about Caleb Williams a lot, and he was taken with the first overall pick. There was no surprise there to the Bears. They had that opportunity to hit the reset button, trade Fields, and, start that clock with the rookie contract. And that's what they opted to do. They traded Fields, and they ended up taking Caleb Williams with the first overall pick. And Caleb Williams is stepping into a good situation with the Bears. The Bears, I've talked about it a lot, how much I like what they've done this offseason. I've said it so many times that I'm repeating myself. But they should be a very competitive team this season. Now, in their division and the conference as a whole, I don't look at them as one of the top teams in the NFC. They have the potential to have a very explosive offense that can compete with anybody. If Caleb Williams is that guy, this offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I think it will be. And I think this team could definitely make a push for the playoffs. And I think they expect that. They expect that. And they have the roster to do it. Because the defense played better towards the end of the year. And just look at the playmakers that they have on offense. The trio of wide receivers. Adding to that receiving core with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and then you draft Rome Odunze. This offense should be explosive. They should be able to put up points. The defense, like I said, they improved towards the end of the year. They should be better. There's no reason why this team shouldn't contend for a playoff spot. But like I said, with the division, I like the Lions and the Packers better. The Vikings, again, there's question marks at quarterback. They drafted J.J. McCarthy, who we'll talk about. So we'll see how that all plays out. But right now, I look at the Lions and the Packers as the top two teams in that division. But the Bears, they have given Caleb Williams the weapons to be successful. And I think he's in a good situation. And he's going to be starting day one, of course. There's no questions on that. He's starting day one. So, and the Bears in the past, they weren't the best situation to get drafted into. But I feel like what the Bears have done, they're giving Caleb Williams a lot to be successful in year one and give the Bears a chance to get to the playoffs. And we'll see if they can do that. Maybe they can be that a wild card team. I think they have a chance to do that. So now with Jaden Daniels, drafted by Washington, I haven't really talked about Washington a lot. And, they made they made moves this offseason. They added some veteran guys like Austin Eckler and Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz. Now, these would have been great moves if it was, a few years ago. But they added some veteran guys. They also, signed Marcus Mariota as well. They added Dante Fowler Jr. to the defense. They signed Tyler Biadasz, the center from Dallas, to add to the offensive line, so that was good. They added a tackle. Signed Jeremy Chin in the secondary. We'll take a look. They also signed Cleveland Farrell as well, the defensive end, who's kind of bounced around recently. They also added Brandon McManus, so that's where he went. But you look at the depth chart of the Commanders, and you still got Terry McLaurin, of course. You got Jahan Dotson, Brian Robinson Jr. to go along with Eckler. They also drafted Luke McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's brother. And right now, so on their depth chart, they got Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Luke McCaffrey. They actually have Luke McCaffrey listed as the third wide receiver on the depth chart. They did add Nick Allegretti from Kansas City. So, they've made moves. And along with the draft, they did draft Jer'Zhan Newton, who could have been a first-round pick. They drafted him out of Illinois. So the Commanders did make a lot of moves. They did have cap space, and they used that. Like I said, they added some veteran guys. They added guys on the offensive line, on the defense as well. So they did make moves. Now, are these going to be impactful moves? I think on the offensive line, yes, but the defense was pretty bad last year, particularly in the secondary. So, but I feel like all I've been talking about is the defense, and instead of the quarterback. But yeah, so Jaden Daniels, probably starting day one, coming off of a Heisman, and these were his stats from his final season with LSU. So almost 4,000 yards passing, 3,812 yards passing, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, very impressive. And then last 2 seasons, he had 11 rushing touchdowns in 2022 and 10 rushing touchdowns in 2023. So he's got that mobility to him, of course. And, are his weapons, like how they are for Caleb Williams? No, not necessarily. But you got Terry McLaurin, who I think is, looking for some stability at the quarterback position. I mean, there was that quote he had where he just said he was running a lot of cardio. So you're hoping that they can develop a rapport. You got Jahan Dotson, who I think, they're still expecting big things out of him. He had just over 500 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns last year. So, and he's 24. And then you got Luke McCaffrey, who they drafted as well. So, yeah, I think the Commanders, they're, on the come up. I think they're, at least they got their guy. So we'll see how his game translates to the NFL. Like I said, I like the Bears situation better than the Commanders, but he does have some weapons around him. But I wouldn't say he has the supporting cast like Caleb Williams does with the Bears. So that's my thoughts on Jaden Daniels' situation. Again, the combination of Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr., I think that's good. And to have a decent running game, that definitely will help. So, and Brian Robinson Jr. had a good season last year with the Commanders. So that's my thoughts on Jaden Daniels and his situation. Then you go down to Michael Penix. And, oh, nope, I skipped over Drake May. My bad. I talked about them a little bit yesterday, the Patriots, and, Jacoby Brissett talking about there maybe being a competition. Yeah, the Patriots situation, not the best because they don't really, you went from the Bears, love the situation offensively. Commanders, yeah, it's a step below, but, you still got some guys there that can make plays. And then you go down to the Patriots where, yeah, the Commanders have a new head coach in Dan Quinn, but you also have Gerard Mayo, new head coach for the Patriots. The Patriots really don't have a lot of playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Pretty lackluster. You got Ramondre Stevenson as the lead back. Right now they have Jacoby Brissett listed as a QB1, so we'll see, is Drake May going to be the starter day one, or are they going to ease him into it? I feel like they might ease him into it, but we'll have to wait and see. So you got Ramondre Stevenson, Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, Demario Douglas. They drafted Jalen Polk. Hunter Henry as the top tight end. There's... And Kendrick Bourne's coming off of an injury, so they don't really have that number one wide receiver on this team. And, again, they might want to ease Drake May into it, and that might be the best thing for him. But, yeah, the Patriots situation was not really the best. But they're rebuilding. And, they still got a solid defense behind them. So, but, yeah, the Patriots, not the best situation to get drafted into. But, you know what? If they got Jacoby Brissett starting and they want to ease Drake May into it, I don't really see a problem with that. So then we go to Michael Penix Jr. And I think sitting behind Kirk Cousins for a couple years and, learning from him, I think that's good. because then, when eventually he does take over, then maybe, he turns into that franchise guy that the Falcons are hoping for. And people are high on Penix. And Penix definitely showed you in college that he does have that ability. But he's going to be sitting behind Kirk Cousins. And the Falcons, their offense is, on paper, it's pretty good with the 2 running backs. And you got Drake London. You're hoping Kyle Pitts, this is his breakout year with Kirk Cousins now throwing him the ball. So I think this is a good situation for Penix to end up in terms of their playmakers. Now, again, you see on social media, it's weird. Like on social media, Falcons fans are not happy, but then some people in the media are saying this. What are they talking about? It's like polar opposite viewpoints on the pick of Penix. But again, I think it's good for the Falcons' future, but it's just where the pick was is the problem. So, and then you got J.JMcCarthy, who I don't know if he's going to start right away. I think there might be some time, between him, getting him ready to start. I think Sam Darnold starts, and then maybe you ease J.J.McCarthy into it. I think there's another situation where that's the case, and you don't want to throw him in right away. But if they're able to agree to a long-term deal with Justin Jefferson, you got him, you got Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. That's a solid group that you're going to be throwing to. Like I said, I like the Vikings roster a lot, so I think that's a good situation for him. And again, if you could sit behind Sam Darnold and, you kind of get eased into it. And you got Kevin O'Connell, who's an offensive-minded head coach. So I think J.J. McCarthy's in a good situation. And I know a lot of people are not high on him. But we'll see how he does. We'll see how he does when he eventually gets his shot. And then finally, we got Bo Nix, who I don't really know too much about. But, well, like I said, I with a lot of these prospects, I don't know that much about each prospect. But with Bo Nix, with the Broncos, I mean, they might be trading Courtland Sutton. That's a possibility. I don't think he's going to be starting right away. I feel, right now they got him listed as, again, ESPN has him listed as the number 1 on the depth chart, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. And that goes for every depth chart that I've kind of looked at. But they could be trading Courtland Sutton. They brought back Tim Patrick. Oh, they signed Josh Reynolds. Okay, I didn't realize that's where Josh Reynolds went. They did sign they drafted one of his receivers, Troy Franklin. So that's good for him. You got Marvin Mims Jr., who was used, more on special teams. Yeah, I don't know if Bo Nix is going to start right away. He might be another one where they want to ease him into it. But yeah, I don't know. The Broncos might not be the best situation, but he is coming off of an impressive season with Oregon. 45 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, 4,500 yards passing. Now again, that's just his stats. I mean, you got to look at the opponents that he did it against. I get it. I understand that. But still, I mean, 45 touchdowns with 3 picks is very good. So, yeah, the Broncos might not be the best situation. But, I mean, you got Sean Payton, and I know his, with everything with Russell Wilson last year, it wasn't pretty, but I mean, the Broncos needed a quarterback. I think if one of these guys went to the Raiders, I think that'd be, a decent situation just because with their playmakers, with Devontae Adams and, they drafted Brock Bowers now, Jacoby Myers. I know Josh Jacobs left, which hurts, but the Raiders, they didn't draft a quarterback. They ended up taking Bowers then. But yeah, the quarterbacks flew off the board in this draft. Some of them were people had them going in later rounds, but that was not the case. They all got taken within the first 15 picks. So, but yeah, Bo Nix, his situation with the Broncos, I just don't think the Broncos are very good. So, but they're hoping he's the long-term answer. So, I think Caleb Williams, he ended up in the best situation. I would probably rank J.J. McCarthy after that. then Michael Penix, then Jaden Daniels, and then I'd probably say either Drake May. Then it's probably like a tie between Drake May and Bo Nix. But again, this is based off of the playmakers. And, Michael Penix is not starting right away. He's going to be sitting behind Kirk Cousins. So, and that might happen with some of these other guys too. But, Caleb Williams is going to start day one. Jaden Daniels is most likely going to do the same. But some of the other guys, they might be sitting for a little bit. So, but let me know what you guys think about the situations for each first-round quarterback. Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about Najee Harris's fifth-year option not being picked up by the Steelers and what that entails. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about Najee Harris's fifth-year option not being picked up. So let's get right into that. So he has consistently rushed for 1,000 yards in each of his first 3 seasons in the NFL. And they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. It seems like they want to evaluate his performance under new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith before making any commitment beyond 2024. And I think also you have the emergence of Jaylen Warren as well. So, maybe this could be it for Najee Harris. And Najee Harris has struggled at times with the Steelers. And, part of that has been because the offensive line just hasn't been good since he's gotten drafted. But yeah, it's just at times like you see, some of his I don't want to say routes, but like you see how like I've seen a couple videos like from prior seasons. Like there was that one against the Eagles where he could have very easily just kept running and he would have gained more yards, but instead he starts, trying to juke out a man and then ends up getting tackled. I don't know, that's just one thing I could think of. But yeah, it's just he hasn't been. At times, he's like I said, he's struggled. But again, he's still managed to, reach 1,000 yards. So let's kind of go through Najee Harris's stats with the Steelers since he got drafted back in 2021. So, yeah, 2021, 307 carries or 307 attempts, 1,200 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns. 2022, 272 attempts. 1,034 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns, and then had one more rushing touchdown in 2023. Had 1,035 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. But yeah, towards the end of the year, him and Jaylen Warren were really running the ball effectively for the Steelers, and that also helped the Steelers get to the playoffs. So if we go to let's see if we can go to the game logs. But yeah, you go back to. Wow, yeah, didn't even get over 100 yards till the Seahawks, and that was on December 1st or December 31st. Apologize for that, but yeah, he 31 yards rushing against the 49ers, 43 against the Browns, 65 against the Raiders, 71 against the Texans. Yeah, he got 99 against the Bengals, so he was 1 yard shy of 100, and that was on November 26th. But yeah, didn't get over 100 yards until the Seahawks game. He had 27 carries for 122 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then he had 26 carries for 112 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, ran the ball effectively the last 2 games, but then only had 37 yards rushing in the playoff game against the Bills. He's 26 years old. I mean, I feel like with Jaylen Warren, maybe they move off of Najee Harris again because of the running back position. He's 25, and 784 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, but he averaged 5.3 yards per carry. With Najee Harris, he was averaging, what did he average last year? He averaged 4.1. So, Jaylen Warren kind of was the better running back, even though Najee Harris had more yards. But and throughout the year, you had Mike Tomlin saying, that they, saying some things on the position. It was kind of like a week-to-week thing on who was going to be the lead running back. But, I think it's a nice duo that they got. Now, I don't know how much longer that duo is going to be together because they might end up just moving off of Najee Harris after 2024. Or maybe they bring him back. Because, I mean, he is 26, but, he's getting to that age where, and we saw a lot of changes with running backs going to different places. Teams are kind of hesitant to, give running backs big top dollar, except the Eagles, they paid Saquon Barkley a gazillion dollars. So, they're teams that are still willing to open their wallets for that position, but it's not very often you're going to see that. I think that's kind of just an outlier with Saquon getting paid. And, I could see like I said, I could see the Steelers moving off of him and not giving him that long-term contract because of the position. So it could be Jaylen Warren that ends up being the lead guy there, and then the Steelers, they maybe bring in a veteran or they draft a quarterback. They draft another one. So we'll see, but this could be Najee Harris's best year because the Steelers really prioritized this offensive line in the draft. They took three linemen. 2 of them are going to be starting, definitely. Well, actually, I think all 3 of them could be starting, at least when I was looking at the depth chart. But they also drafted a lineman, a tackle last year, I believe. So they are really trying to, build this offensive line up. Because, you want to be able to protect your quarterback and you want to be able to, open up those lanes for the running game. And the running game, we could talk about Mason Rudolph and what he was able to do, to help the Steelers get back to the playoffs. But the running game also played its part too. And like I said, talking about what Najee Harris did in those final 2 games against the Seahawks and the Ravens. If the offensive line is a solid unit, once again, because the Steelers, when you had the killer bees, and I brought this up early in the week, but they had a solid offensive line, from left to right. And, a lot of those guys retired. I mean, pretty much all those guys retired. I don't think anybody's left. I don't think, Villanueva, I think, is he still playing? I know Pouncey retired, DeCastro retired. Who else am I missing? I know Kelvin Beachum, but I know he went to a different team. I'm trying to remember. But I know Pouncey, I know Villanueva, I know DeCastro. I know Matt Filer was on the offensive line, but I think that might have been a little bit after. But yeah, I mean, all those guys, with the Killer Bees, that was a solid offensive line, regardless. If I could find the depth chart, then I could tell you right now. Let's see. Pittsburgh Steelers depth chart archive. Oh yeah, you had Ramon Foster, but who's the other tackle I was thinking of? It was Marcus Gilbert. That's who it was. Matt Filer was on the 2017 team. Okay. But yeah, that was a solid offensive line. So the Steelers are trying to get back to that, and that was back when you had Le'Veon Bell, who was one of the best running backs at the time, before he held out. So the Steelers want to get back to that. They want to get back to that smash mouth football. You run the football down their throat, and I think especially with this year, it's going to be important because you got Russell Wilson coming in now, and we'll see how he performs. I think the Steelers are going to be a good team. I don't think they're going to be, a team that's going to go very far if they get to the playoffs, but I think they'll be a good team. They win those 9-10 games. They maybe squeak into the playoffs, and then we'll see who they end up playing against in the first round. But, they addressed the offensive line, and they made some moves on the defensive side of the ball. You added Patrick Queen to the linebacker core, which is a position that they've kind of been trying to fill these last couple of years. You look at the Steelers, strength of the team is their defense. When you got the quarterback of the defense, T.J. Watt, he could take over a game. So, the Steelers, I expect them to be a solid team. Now, like I said, do I expect them to go very far? Not really. If Russell Wilson turns back the clock and is the Russell Wilson from Seattle, well, then yeah, they could go far, but that Russell Wilson's not coming back. You're going to get more of the Denver Russ, but, we'll see. So, when it comes to Najee Harris, back to this, the original point, I think this could be it for him, and he ends up going somewhere else. I feel like the Steelers would be okay moving off of him, but if they want to see what they get at, if he goes out there and he has a monster year, then maybe they do bring him back. So I guess you could look at, well, it depends on how he performs. Because if he goes out there and he has 1,500 yards rushing and double-digit rushing touchdowns, then yeah, maybe you want to bring him back. But if he goes out there and he has he gets around the 1,000-yard mark like he has. He has 7 or 8 touchdowns. Yeah, maybe you move off of him. Unless he wants to come back and take a discount. But, he's going to want to get paid. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But, yeah, I'm kind of leaning more towards if he doesn't have a monster year, then they're probably going to move off of him. He's going to become a free agent. So, but that's my opinion on that. And, we'll see how the Steelers do. They did things that you wouldn't expect. You would have thought that Kenny Pickett was going to be the starter once again, but that was not the case. You got a whole new quarterback room. And also just the whole thing with Justin Fields maybe returning kicks. I don't know how much I believe that, but I don't know if that's a good idea. Well, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option either. So, we'll see if they end up bringing him back too. But yeah, the Steelers, they're kind of like a middle-of-the-pack team with the AFC, but it's just because, I think they're a good team, but it's just that the conference is loaded that there's so many other teams that you would take over them right now. But we'll see. I'm curious to see how things go for them, especially with now that they have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. How does that play out throughout the year? But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like I always say, make sure to check out all the other shows. We got new shows coming out. The soccer podcast. Got a golf podcast as well. Like I said, you're going to be seeing some new faces within the coming weeks, which is exciting. Also, there might be, not that there might be, but there's going to be a kind of a change in the format within the coming weeks, coming days, coming weeks. I don't know when this is going to get put into effect, but and I don't even know if I should be saying this, but there might be a added segment. The show will still be an hour, but there's going to be an added segment. So instead of 4 segments, there'll be 5. So, but it'll still be an hour. It's just the segments will be shorter, but there'll be an added segment. So it'll be 5. So I think I'm allowed to say that, right? Hopefully I don't get in trouble. No, I'm joking. But yeah, so there's going to be a slight change to the format, which, like I said, it's might be adding another segment. So I don't know when that's going to go into effect, but that was something that was discussed. So, but yeah, like I said, that's pretty much it. Changes are on the way, new faces. Like I said, you'll be seeing in the coming days. And, make sure to check out all the other shows with the basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs, baseball, wrestling, soccer. Get all the perspectives. Like I said, like I always say, make sure to give the other show some love. And, so with that, that is all the time that we have for today. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again on Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And until then, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, enjoy the weekend, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that